Hi, I'm Jude from HeadFi.org, and on this episode of HeadFi TV, and maybe one or two other episodes of HeadFi TV, we're going to take a quick look at some highlights from CES 2017. That's the Consumer Electronics Show. I didn't have a chance to check out the whole show. I had a lot of meetings. It was a very busy time, but I did get a chance to see some really cool highlights for audio enthusiasts at CES. As an audio enthusiast, I think the single biggest story for me at CES 2017 was MQA, and Master Quality Authenticated. And I think most headfires are probably at least somewhat familiar with what MQA is and what it's been promising. In the audio industry, we've been talking about it, debating it, dissecting it for just over 2 years now. I was actually at the MQA US launch event in New York, and that was just over 2 years ago. And it's now finally available. Oh, so for those of you not familiar with MQA, it's an end-to-end technology that's intended to deliver master quality audio or high-res audio, so greater than CD quality audio, in a file small enough to stream or download easily. It can be carried in any lossless container, FLAC, AIFF, WAVE, Apple lossless, and it's backwards compatible. Now, in other words, MQA is encoded on the recording side, and if you have a software or hardware MQA decoder, then you can unfold the MQA encoded file into full resolution, which may be the equivalent of 88.2 kilohertz or 96 kilohertz, or even 176.4 and 192 kilohertz. Now, if you don't have an MQA decoder, then the file will be played back at standard CD quality, or MQA says maybe even better than CD quality. Now, the big blockbuster MQA story at CES, I'd say probably the single most important one, was the announcement that Tidal, the popular music streaming service, would be offering MQA-encoded music to stream. So if you're on their highest tier of service, which is $20 a month, and a lot of audiophiles are using it because it's offered lossless CD quality streaming, using that tier of service, you can now get MQA-encoded music streamed to you. Huge deal. Other cool thing, there are several labels, a handful of labels anyway, supporting it on Tidal right now. And one of those is a biggie, Warner. Warner Music has part of their catalog. It's still a sampling, but I still think it's in the thousands of tracks, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know the exact number, and it's expected to grow. But it's enough that I've been able to find music I love encoded in MQA on Tidal to listen to. Another cool part of Tidal and MQA is that the desktop Tidal application, and I think it's coming to mobile as well. I don't know when, and I don't have the details on the mobile yet, but on the desktop application, it does software decoding of MQA. So if you have an MQA stream coming in, you can choose to software decode it in Tidal, even if your DAC is not an MQA decoding DAC. So you can essentially do the decoding in the app, but here's one limitation. It can only decode to up to the 24-bit 96 kilohertz equivalent of MQA. It can't do, if you have a higher level of MQA encoding, it won't go all the way to the 24.192 level. That requires hardware decoding right now. And so again, the Tidal app can decode to the 24.96 equivalent, which still is very, very, very important because it doesn't require that you have hardware MQA decoding. Very cool. Now, if you do have hardware decoding for MQA, which I have here. So right now, Meridian, of course, was the first to offer it. And we have here the Meridian Prime and the Prime Power Supply. I think it's one of the most underrated DAC amp combos, especially now that the prices come down on both of these units. And Meridian also has the Explorer 2. It's a lot less expensive than the Prime. So you can decode, hardware decode, up to the highest level, which I believe is 24.192 level MQA decoding. And then this is the digital audio player, the Onkyo DPX1. And then I think AudioQuest just announced also that they're going to be supporting MQA through a firmware update on their Dragonfly units. I think it's both Dragonflies, and that's the Dragonfly Black and Dragonfly Red. So if you do have, but these will only decode to 96, I believe, because they're only capable up to 96 kilohertz anyway. So again, Tidal app up to 96 if you want to do software decoding, or if you have a hardware decoder, you can get up to 24.192 depending on your hardware, which is very, very cool. So Meridian, Onkyo, and AudioQuest aren't the only companies supporting hardware decoding of MQA. There's a large and growing list of partners in that regard. I don't know the full list, but names include MSB. MyTech is also going to be supporting that. Actually, they already do. We have one of their Brooklyn DACs on the way here. They also showed at CES a prototype of a small portable called the Clef, which is going to support MQA decoding. Blue Sound, NAD, Pioneer. So there are a lot of other companies, and again, that's not the full list. So there will be other companies other than the ones we're showing you here supporting hardware decoding. Another thing I like about MQA is how they're approaching this from the business standpoint. They brought in a lot of experience, not just from the audio industry, but also from the music industry. So now on the audio side, they have Bob Stewart. Bob Stewart is one of the co-founders of Meridian. He has invented technology that I guarantee you're using at home right now if you play Blu-ray discs, for example. So Bob moved, I think, over to MQA full-time. They brought Ken Forsyth from Meridian also to the team. So the audio industry experience is very strongly represented, and there are others as well at MQA. But the music industry side is also well represented. The CEO, I believe, of MQA is now Mike Jabara, who came over from Warner. So this is exciting to bring that kind of experience in. And they also brought in another gentleman from there, Spencer Chrislew. So, and again, I'm sure there are others. Very exciting to see them approaching it from both sides. Of course, none of this would matter if it didn't perform, if it didn't sound awesome. And fortunately, in my experience, it really does. And not just mine. If you look for reviews online of MQA through Tidal, it's been pretty strongly positive. Even some of the biggest critics I've seen have come around to at least acknowledge, even test, that the MQA high-res streaming is indeed equivalent to high-res downloads of the same music. So that's a big deal, at the very least. But to me, listening to MQA encoded music has been a treat, and I'm not alone. So it's a big deal, huge story, my biggest story as an audio enthusiast and a music enthusiast at CES 2017. Another highlight for me at CES 2017 was at the AudioTechnica exhibit. Now, when I go to the AudioTechnica exhibit, I expect to see headphones more like these. This is the ATH-M40X. That's a wired model. The ATH-M50X, immensely popular in the head-fi community. And, of course, that's another wired model. I didn't expect, however, to be so impressed by AudioTechnica's two new flagship wireless headphones. This is the DSR-7BT, the ATH DSR-7BT. This is the ATH DSR-9BT, the flagship of the two flagship models. Now, we're going to talk about these headphones in a little more detail very, very soon in the upcoming CanJam New York preview video. But I thought I had to mention these now since we're talking about CES highlights, and these were definitely two highlights from me from Las Vegas this year. What's so special about them? Well, they're more purist. They don't have, for example, they don't have active noise canceling. What they sound like is just good closed headphones. And they're probably two of my favorite Audio-Technica headphones, period. They just happen to be wireless. Now, part of that reason might be the fact that they support aptX HD. And in fact, of all the wireless headphones we have here at HeadFi HQ, I think they're the only two that we have that have aptX HD. Now, the only players I have that support aptX HD happen to be the late model Astel and Kern players. So I think the AK70, AK300, this is the AK320, and the AK380 all support aptX HD. When you pair either of these headphones with these models, it's pretty cool because they tell you, they confirm with a logo, aptX HD. And what's nice about aptX HD is it supports 24-bit 48 kilohertz. Now it also supports regular aptX AAC and SBC codecs, so you're good there. But what's nice is if you have an aptX HD device or an Astel and Kern player, it's the only one I know of right now that has it, the fidelity is outstanding. I can't actually believe I'm listening to wireless headphones, and I'm enjoying them quite a lot, just, again, as good closed headphones. Anyways, we'll talk about them again, CanJam New York preview video, but these were definitely two highlights from me at CES 2017. One of my top highlights from CES 2017 was no doubt the Chord Electronics exhibit. I spent way too much time there because they had 3 new blockbuster product releases that are of great interest to me. The first is the Chord Hugo 2, successor to the wildly successful Chord Hugo. They had something called the Poly, which is a companion device for the Chord Mojo that gives it all sorts of new capabilities. And they also introduced something called the Blue Mark II, which is a high-end transport that has something called an M-scaler. Now, we're not going to talk on this video about the Blue Mark II or the Poly, since we're going to be talking about Chord Electronics in greater detail very, very soon in the CanJam New York preview video. But I did want to take a moment to talk about that first one, which is the Chord Hugo 2. By now, I think most of you are familiar with the site of this. This is the Chord Hugo portable DAC amp combo probably one of the biggest product launch success stories in the HeadFi community history. It was priced at $2,500 when it was first announced 3 years ago, and in the first year they sold over 10,000 of them. I don't even know how many thousands they've sold since. Huge success story. It is still the portable DAC amp combo of choice, the reference for many HeadFires. For me, it was the portable DAC amp combo reference until Chord announced the Chord Mojo sometime later. Much less expensive than the original Hugo, and it gave up some features which I kind of hated doing, but I liked its smoother sound signature, which some people don't prefer. I did, so I switched to the Mojo, but I missed some features. I missed crossfeed, I missed a dedicated line out, and so I've been waiting for a true Hugo successor. Well, at CES 2017, we got it. It's the Chord Hugo 2. They just announced it, and I'm just thrilled with this new device. The reason I'm so excited about the Hugo 2 is because I get back all the features I had in the Hugo and in a unit that I think sounds better than Mojo. So one of the key improvements they made with the Hugo 2 versus the Hugo is it has now 49,152 taps in the filter versus 26,000 in the Mojo. So it doesn't have the 164,000 that Dave has, but you know what? It's the closest thing to a portable Dave that I think I'm going to get right now. No, it doesn't sound as good as the Chord Dave. To be clear, this is the reference DAC as far as I'm concerned for me that I've heard, but it's as close as I'm going to get to a Dave I can take with me. Something else very cool about the Hugo 2 that I like is the ability to customize its sound to some degree with 4 different filter settings. I'm just going to go through them very quickly. The first one is what they just call Hugo. It's considered the most accurate, the ultimate reference filter of the 4, and that's the white light. And then there's Hugo HF Plus. No idea why they're calling it HF Plus, because it's actually the ultimate reference filter that I just showed you, the white one, but with high frequency roll-off, and that's green. And then there's something called Mojo, which is intended to be smoother than the ultimate reference filter, and that's orange. And then there's Mojo HF Plus, once again, high frequency roll-off added to that orange one that I just showed you. So before I knew what the filter settings meant, what the colors meant, all I could do was listen to it and then switch through them and land on the one I liked. And I always ended up landing on green. And what the green is, again, is the ultimate reference one with some high frequency roll-off. Now in absolute terms, because I've done some preliminary measurements, I'll show them to you on the forums, the roll-off is actually quite small in absolute terms, but it's audible. And the filter setting changes are audible. So I like being able to customize the sound. That's a very cool feature of the Hugo 2. Also, with the Hugo 2 versus the Mojo, I get my crossfeed back. I like crossfeed as long as it's well implemented. And I like the way Chord implements crossfeed. Because some recordings that you listen to, old Beatles stereo recordings, for example, just have too much left-right panning, very unnatural. Roberta Flack, Killing Me Softly, a lot of left, hard left, hard right position. And so being able to use crossfeed, and it has the 3 varying levels of crossfeed like the original Hugo, is very cool. I like being able to use crossfeed, and I love having it back. Now, given that the Mojo is still current in the line and looks to be for some time from what I can gather, and it's quite a bit smaller than the Hugo 2, they're positioning this as the really portable option. And what they're positioning the Hugo 2 as now, it seems to me, they're positioning it as more of a desktop class source component that you can take with you if you want, because it has its own internal battery that you can charge and to have it take with you, just like the original Hugo. To emphasize that, to really drive that home, they include a remote control with it. So you can control it, put it in your home rig, and control it remotely. That's a very cool thing to be able to do, and it really drives home the point that they intend this to be as much a home source component as a portable one. Now, having said that, I still think most Hugo 2 owners are going to take it with them everywhere they go. I've been borrowing this prototype Hugo 2, and it's come with me pretty much everywhere I've gone since I've had it. And so to help with that, here's another key improvement versus the Hugo. You can charge it via USB. You don't need a wall. There is no wall wart for it. With the Chord Hugo, the original, you needed to carry a wall wart power supply to power it. With this, USB, baby. Thank you, Chord, because I forgot that wall wart power supply a lot of the time that I traveled, and that was kind of a drag. So I love that you can charge it via USB now. So going from the Hugo, the original Hugo, to the Hugo 2, another key design change that was made, an improvement, was going away, this is the original Hugo, going away from these recessed jacks. So the only jack that wasn't really recessed on the original Hugo was the 1/4-inch headphone jack. Everything else was pushed down into the chassis, and so a lot of the cables I had, normal cables, just wouldn't work. I had to get special cables made or find just the right cables that would fit into these recessed jacks. With the Hugo 2, they've pretty much made all of them flush. Now the RCA jacks are still recessed for protection, and that I understand, and I don't have any problem getting most of my cables in there, but all the other jacks are flush. Thank you, Chord. Another key change and improvement that I like. So it's obvious I'm excited about the Chord Hugo 2. It's going to be my portable DAC amp reference, no doubt, when it's released. Again, it's as close as I can get right now to a Chord Dave that I can take with me everywhere I go. So this was definitely one of my key highlights of CES 2017. So again, these are just a few highlights from CES 2017, and we're going to have another episode of HeadFi TV with a few more, so stay tuned for that.